I mean, I learned this even through racing a little bit, but it's just reinforced here. You just got to let go in some situations. Like, it may not be perfect. You may not get a full night's sleep, or you may not expect to be making a run to the vet in the middle of the night for something that ends up being nothing, but you just kind of roll with it because you care about the person or the dog, or it's just life. So there's some things that are worth, missing out on some sleep or skipping out on something else for.
Welcome back to the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. We're Jess and BJ, and we're on a mission to create a better world, bringing meaningful conversations to the endurance sports world and sharing stories of people looking, finding, and living their purpose are cogs in the wheel of this powerful mission. And today we're excited to be bringing you another one of those conversations with professional triathlete Ben Kanute. Ben was first on the show hot off of the Rio Olympics in episode 43, which we conducted at his home in Tucson, Arizona, while BJ and I were actually living on the road. I think we recorded that podcast in November of 2016, and it gives you all the background on Ben, his early roots in triathlon, the influence of one of his earliest coaches, and a detailed account of Ben's road to Rio. At that time, you had, Ben, just made the switch to his coach, Jim Vance, who is the star of YTP episode 118, which we launched back in August 2018. I highly recommend going back to have a listen to both of those podcasts. The links are in the show notes for this episode on yogitriathlete.com. So today, we're diving back in with Ben to find out what's been going on with this US Olympian and 3-time national champion, besides things like his super exciting finish at the Island House Triathlon in 2017 when Ben outsprinted Terenzo Bozzoni after 3 days of fierce racing, or when he took second at the Ironman 70.3 World Championships in 2017, 4th in 2018, and 10th in 2019, or his multi-time escape from Alcatraz back-to-back victories in 2017 and 2018. On top of that, he got married to a beautiful yogi named Courtney and is now sharing more publicly than ever his life as a professional triathlete, husband, dog dad, and soon-to-be dad on a journey that he believes is still just beginning. So, Ben, welcome back to the show, man. So good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
So the last time we left you, you were single. You were living like a bachelor. You had just started with Coach Vance, and a lot has gone down in the last 3.5 years. How would you sum up all these achievements and beautiful gifts that you're receiving in your life with Courtney and the baby on the way? I mean, I think it's kind of hard to sum up in one word or one sentence. A lot has happened, but just very grateful and happy to be where I am right now, but still pushing forward. Yeah. So how have you been flowing with, all the changes, the cancellations, the recent news about 70.3 World Championships, being taken off the calendar for 2021, right? How are you flowing with all these changes?
Just taking it, I guess we were taking it day by day, but now just trying to figure out kind of what the best plan for us is. But Jim said it best, in that timelines change, but goals don't. So we still have all the goals that we'd like to do, qualifying for the Olympics and winning a medal there, winning a 70.3 World Championship. It just it's just not going to happen in 2020 now. So we're just refocusing and making sure that we're all set for 2021 and looking like, I have an extra year to prepare, an extra year to be better than I was this year.
And you've been taking part in some of these Zwift races.
Yeah, the virtual races.
Yeah. No, it's been a great substitute. It's fun to get the competitive juices flowing. The different formats have been fun to try out. Obviously, virtual racing is not the same as outdoor racing, but for this time and right now, it's been a lot of fun to kind of take part and race with the other guys, even if it's from all different parts of the world. We kind of have our own little pain caves, and it's been good to get some competition in.
So just speaking of pain caves, you just moved into new pain cave?
Yeah, so it was just this past weekend that we made the big move. So the house here is still kind of being put together. But one of the first things we did was lay the floor down for the gym and get the treadmill and the shelving and the equipment all by Techno Gym brought in just, I think it was a couple of days ago, Monday, we got that all put in. So still kind of adding to it, making a few changes, but excited to really put that to work because it came right at the right time with the heat being cranked up in Arizona right now.
You're going to do, so you've got your own YouTube channel now, or you probably had it before, but you're really, pushing that. Are you going to give us a cribs view of the Pain Cave?
Yeah, I think we'll have to have something in store. So we made some good use of the space we have in there. So we're working on a couple things, and I think a tour of the Pain Cave is kind of on the docket.
So with your YouTube channel and you and Courtney, kind of sharing your life a little bit, how does that feel to do that, to just be a little bit more open, a little bit more vulnerable on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. We kind of view everything that we do from, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's just a bit of kind of that backstage pass. So you're not going to see every little thing, but it gives you that little bit extra to, if you want to see, how a professional triathlete trains, how I eat, live, how we live our life together traveling. We kind of meant for the YouTube to have a lot of travel segments in there. But obviously 2020 put some of that travel stuff on hold, but it just gives you kind of that extra insight, a little bit of a behind the scenes view for what we do. And it's fun to open it up a little bit to everybody else and let people along in the journey, because achieving goals and winning races is great, but as a lot of people find out when they do triathlon or whatever endeavor that they're doing, it's the journey along the way that really makes it worthwhile at the end.
Have you received feedback at all from your channel? I know, me personally, like I'm following Christian Blumenfeld now and Richard Murray and and it's exactly to what you're saying. It's this backstage pass to you're actual people. Like you have day-to-day things to accomplish, and you have struggles, and you have highs and lows, and it's about the experience. And all we see most of the time is what's on, YouTube or Triathlon Live, is that just the racing. So, have you got any feedback?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's been pretty positive overall. So, I mean, we're doing it as a bit of a side project and just trying to have fun with it and make some videos we think we'll enjoy going back to watch. So sometimes they come out, every few days. Sometimes they come out every few weeks. But overall, it's been pretty positive. People seem to like them overall. So there's a good range out there too from what we have on our YouTube channel. Everything from picking up our dog Tucker to a training day, to yoga videos, to core and strength work. So kind of have a wide range of different topics that we cover.
So did Courtney primarily bring yoga into your life, or were you practicing it before you guys were together? She was an influence in your life.
Yeah, she's definitely the main influence in there. So when I was back on the kids team, there had been every so often there was like a yoga or kind of a wellness type stretching day thrown in there. But Courtney was the one who got me going to my first classes and was able to kind of give me my own stuff to work on as she went through her teacher training. So she's really the one who pushed me to practice more on it and to really get into it.
Is there something about yoga that you learned, like that she's opened you up to, that you were like, I didn't even realize that was yoga or a part of yoga?
She's really into like the power flows. So like having yoga be like a hard strength workout as well. Like I never really thought of it that way. I just kind of thought of it as stretching or meditating. But some of the things that I've really taken from it are being able to center yourself and kind of focus on one thing and flow through something, but then also just focusing on the breath. Because I think being able to control your breathing is something that endurance athletes could really benefit from. Because, if you're, panicking in a swim or just in a race situation or kind of whatever it is, like being able to get control of your breath and really calm yourself down that way is a huge tool to have.
Yeah, well, the pranayama, which is the breath control, is actually the life management control. So when you think about it, being able to control the breath is like being able to self-regulate yourself. Like being able to manage yourself in a situation where maybe like the hype is getting too much, the cortisol levels are high, to be able to have that tool, and which is direct interface to your nervous system, get yourself to a place of calm.
Yeah, exactly. And I always think too, like a calm mind is always like a fast mind. So there's a lot of stuff, like if you get overwhelmed and you're in like the transition area or something goes wrong, panicking never helps. Always having a calm mind is a good way to get through it.
Yeah. Have you had an experience when you were racing where you were like found yourself using that like a tool from yoga like that?
I think that I find myself, every race using something to just center, be in the now moment. And yeah, it comes from my dad kind of back when I was growing up saying there's always going to be something that goes wrong in the race. So I kind of plan for that. So if you know something's not going to go perfectly, you can kind of help preemptively calm yourself down or control yourself. So I've had a number of things. I've slipped and fallen. I've had shoes on the wrong side of the bike. I've had, laces break or not, like your nutrition pop out of your bike, and you could panic and get all frustrated and say, oh, if that didn't happen, it would have been so good. Or you just handle it and you solve the situation and you see, what can I do now to handle it? And I think that sort of mindset is beneficial.
Yeah. In our first conversation with you, I remember you like equating it to a boxing match. Like if you're down in the ring, you've got just a few seconds to kind of get yourself back on your feet and keep moving forward. Yeah,
exactly. So it's just really like, I kind of view it as like a solution focused mindset. Like if something happens, it's how do I solve it? Like even if everything's going well, you're like, okay, how do I keep doing this? But if you slip and fall, it's, okay, check myself. Am I good? Okay, well, let's keep going. Or if there's something that's wrong with the bike, you fix it how you can, and then you keep moving on. So it's never dwelling on, oh, if that didn't happen. It's always kind of focused on what can I do right now to make me better or faster.
And that's that presence, yeah. The ability to not get too far ahead or to maintain that baggage we drag with us from the past. And the past could be anywhere from 30 seconds ago to, 3 years ago. When you're going intense, when you're racing and you've got that intensity, because you've got that, you wear that on your sleeve. Like you can put that effort out there. And when I'm saying intense, it's not all, guerrilla like. It's an intense effort. Like it's a high level, where you're shaking the bike on the trainer and you're really into it, like sprinting for those finishes. What are you thinking about in those moments? Like if it's like a 30-second sprint at the end and it's all out and you're trying to make it, is there a way that you come back to, are you going hard and calm at the same time? Or is it just, you don't even remember it? It's just flow. It's no thought.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of it is that flow, no thought, or just like being right in the moment and pushing yourself hard. So, I think there's different states of flow as well. Like if I'm in the middle of a half Ironman and I'm calm and have a rhythm and I'm working through the race and taking my nutrition, like you have a rhythm to it that's really steady, calm. It's not like that shaking the trainer. If I'm doing something like sprinting at the end of the race, like in Island House or Chengdu or any of these other races, that I think is almost more of like an emotional state a little bit. It's like an emotional flow where you're kind of like digging deep down and all you're really thinking about is getting that last drop of energy out of yourself and just trying to beat the guy next to you. So all of that, every ounce of like thought and just energy is going into propelling yourself forward or putting out the maximum amount of wattage, anything like that. So I think that there's kind of that range and it's energy management a little bit, because obviously like a sprint like that on the trainer or whatever is not pretty. You can't sustain that for very long. But when you're in the middle of a half marathon, you're not doing that. You're trying to save a little bit of that for there. So it's all about like efficiency for your flow state. And that's where I think that calm mind that, is good for problem solving and all of that is pretty good for racing too. I think there's very few athletes that can race angry the entire race or race emotional the entire race. It's all about controlling your emotions and letting them out like when you need them.
And you're doing that. You're practicing this. You're doing anything from a super sprint to a half Ironman. You're practicing this every year. It's just not like segments. You're doing all distances. Yeah.
And it's interesting to go back and forth. Like the super sprint is a ton of fun because you can slam a bunch of caffeine, like get hyped up and just go hard from the beginning, and it's all out. And I love that because, there's pacing to it, but there's like no real pacing. It's all racing. The half Ironmans are fun too because there's a bit of strategy to it. There's, you can't just like get hyped up. You can, maybe sprint the first little bit to get position or whatever to pass or something like that. But a lot of it's about efficiency and really managing your energy throughout the day. And that's at still a very high level because we're starting to see half Ironman being raced more and more like Olympic distance racing. But there's much more of like a pacing aspect to it. So I still love the range. I love going back and forth between the distances because I get that variety, and I think it helps keep it fresh. And in a weird way, I think they kind of complement each other, the different distances. So it's been a lot of fun to kind of mix that up over the past few years.
I was watching your Super League this morning on the trainer, and then I bounced over to the championships from 2018 in South Africa. Do you ever get confused, or because you're racing so many different locations, different distances, do you ever feel, I was like, does he ever get caught up in like one thing and he's like, well, wait a minute, this is a half. I've got to extend this effort a little bit longer.
No, I think you get pretty dialed into what you're doing. Okay. And thankfully for like a lot of those big races, like especially the half Ironman World Championships, we have a pretty concentrated block of work before then. So we're doing specific workouts like a month or so beforehand to get myself ready for that type of effort. But yeah, no, at least not yet. I haven't been at a start line and had to remind myself what the distance is. So who knows? As I get older, maybe that'll happen more and more if I keep going back and forth between the distances.
You'll have like little index cards with you.
Yeah, exactly. Write it on my hand like a swim meet back in the day. Like, okay, what's my event? What am I doing?
And now it's like, what order is it in? Because, Super League's in reverse order.
Yeah. You want to dive into Super League a little bit?
I love that format.
We love that whole thing, like what Mac is bringing. And,
how does that, like, how do you even approach something like that? And I guess, maybe it's a question for Jim too, but how do you approach the 3 times racing, like like you're going over and over the same thing. And then the next day you maybe just swim time trialing or bike time trialing. How do you stay engaged in all of that?
Yeah. We haven't really done too much specific work for mixing it up. Like I know some of the guys will do multiple times through, or they'll do bike swims or something like that to mix it up to kind of get that. We train for the distance a lot of times. So, and we also train in a way where like, my swim and bike, we've had a lot of success with it, and the run is always a progression. But when there's a really specific workout, unless we're trying to train for a brick or something like that, unless that's part of the workout, we do a lot of like the runs early on in the day or at a specific time so that I can get the most out of myself and try and, hit that next pace as quickly as possible without like the underlying fatigue of other workouts or the brick, unless, we're specifically trying to target that. So we kind of arrange the workouts in a way to maximize, efficiency in the day and with getting the most out of myself in the training plan. But when you handle it, like nobody has really done these types of races before, unless, they're at like maybe a couple of times they might have done it at a local tri or just some random race that got to mix it up. So I think when people first got into Super League, especially in that Hamilton Island race and then those first few, nobody quite knew what to expect. So everybody's starting from like with a clean slate, and you get to be creative with it. Like you start to figure out though, like, hey, maybe the second swim is where gaps start to open up, or, the transition from, the second bike to run or wherever, you're like, this is typically where gaps open up, or this is where one person starts to fade or whatever. And I mean, for myself, like a lot of these races, like that first and second time through, like everybody still has all of their matches. It's all really good. And then it's like the third time through and I'm like, okay, I don't want to do a fourth, but it'd be great if we could do a fourth. Like that's kind of how I'm.
Is that when you're just warming up?
Longer, same intensity. So it's, it's interesting that when you see like all sorts of different people, like there are some triathletes who are like pure swimmers almost, who like can swim super well. And then there's some who bike time trial well or run time trial well, but it's different when you put it all together. And it's interesting to see like how that's all kind of, played out.
Well, and the whole concept of it is really created, like with the short shoots and the eliminations and all of that. So it's always as a spectator, and I don't know if you've ever watched any of them, but like their commentary is amazing too. Like they're kind of bagging on some of the athletes, like giving them a hard time, as it's happening, because it's so fast paced. And, is there a part of it that's like, I know it's your job and I know it's serious, but are you having fun out there?
Oh yeah. Well, I think I think a lot of triathletes kind of have a sixth sense of fun where we like to push ourselves, and like there's a certain amount of fun that you get from, seeing how far you can go and also competing against athletes, and pushing yourself. And I think that's what Super League promotes, is it promotes good competition, exciting racing, where even the racers, like we kind of know how it'll play out a little bit, but you don't quite know. And the unpredictability of it is something that makes it not only fun to watch, but fun to race. And that's just like Super League, and why that's so much fun to watch. It's the same reason why the mixed relay is so fun, because everything is so fast. People are on their limit. Like a mistake can change the whole race. So there's a lot of, I think, risk versus reward that go into these types of races, where any little mistake or any risk that you put forward, like going too early or waiting too late, could potentially change like the entire race dynamic.
And the strategy is getting now that it's probably in its third year, Super League now, I think 2017. So people are getting wise to it, like just getting through transition with their sneakers on and diving into the water. I remember one guy did that last year, to just stay in it as long as he could. So there's always like that element. It's not really to win the specific, that individual race. It's about doling out your effort, like you were talking about, to the end, to see where you end up. And just hoping that the others slow down first before you.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bunch of different races within the races, all of the points, and they keep honing it every year too. It keeps improving to make sure that it's more competitive, easier to understand, easy to watch. And yeah, the commentators do a great job at explaining and introducing people to the sport. And that's something that's just, I think, really key when coming into a sport like triathlon, especially, in some of these races that are a little bit longer. You need good commentators to really help, move the race along or explain it, make it exciting. Because, I mean, there are great announcers for golf and all those types of sports, and people can watch them all day. There's no reason why, if you have some good personalities and stuff, you can't watch triathlon all day too.
Yeah, absolutely. Golf, I tend to use that more for napping. Like triathlon, you want that to be not so vanilla. You want that to be a little bit more exciting. So when you had just started working with Jim when we interviewed you back in the end of 2016, and we've had a chance to sit down with Jim and had a great interview with him, and it was so interesting because we were like, he's the data guy, right? Like everybody was like, he's the data guy, and I'm like preparing myself for this very data driven conversation. And when we got there, it was he's so much about the mental piece. Like, yes, he's very much about the data and allowing that to serve as the tools that those are. But without the mental game, the athlete doesn't have much. So and you have a strong mental game just from the stories that you told us about your dad in the first episode we did with you, and you've already brought him up already in this episode. You guys seem to be a really good match to be working with one another. What's something that Jim has brought to you, like as an athlete?
Jim brings a lot to the table. I think that he, he's pretty blunt. He's to the point, so he doesn't really, put up with any BS. Like he knows how to tread the line too. Of like, I always say I can't ever coach myself because I'd either do too little or too much. I'd either be like telling myself, oh, I need time to rest, or I'd be running myself into the ground because I need to keep training and never really do that. So he's pretty good at keeping me in line and making sure like, hey, okay, that's your body telling you don't need to do anymore, or hey, you just need to work through this. It's just about getting through the effort today. So I've gotten pretty good at that on my own throughout the years, being like training on my own, but he adds that extra insight and can explain why, like through data and all of that, why I might need a workout or why I succeeded in a workout when I thought I might not have. So he is very good at, just laying things out there. And like you said, he uses data to help mentally build up an athlete. And I think that for me, like, seeing the proof right in front of me, seeing all of that and hearing the explanation, like, hey, you're this much fitter than you were last year. And I'm not just telling you that to boost your self-esteem. Like I can show you that you're more fit than you were last year. I can show you that you're doing this workout better, that your leg spring stiffness is better than it used to be, or whatever we're talking about. So I think that has been just really great. And the fact that we have good communication, which I think is always key in an athlete coaching relationship.
Yeah. And Jim said that one of the things that as a coach, he said this, that he knows, and I think he was talking about the swim team that he was coaching at the time, the youth swim team. But he was saying like he knows what buttons to push and when to push them. Would you agree with that as his athlete?
Yeah, he can push my buttons. He knows how to push them, I would say. There are some times I look at the workout schedule too, and I'm like, what are you doing, Jim? What are we doing here? And then I end up like a week later, and I'll be like, okay, well, you were right about all of that. Like that was exactly what I needed. Or it can be sometimes annoying how often he's correct in certain things. So, no, he's very good. He's, whenever we do training camps together too, like having him around has always been really good. So we mesh pretty well, and we're just good at putting in the work, I think. So there's nothing really magical about either of us. I think that we both just understand that it takes hard work and communication to develop a plan and then execute that plan for each race.
I love asking this question. How important is the trust component when working with a coach? All in, half in, somewhat in, like how important is this to be all in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to really trust them, but there's a difference between like going all in and then blindly trusting somebody, because I also think that a good coach like Jim, he's not afraid to ask for help or to ask somebody's opinion or to continue learning about the sports, just coaching in general, whatever. So I'm not afraid ever to ask Jim questions or to question like, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing, this type of training? Why wouldn't we do this before the race or whatever? So we're always kind of pushing each other to think of ways to be better. So he's definitely kind of the guy in control of the overall plan. And I trust that he has the experience and the knowledge to craft that. But I also feel comfortable enough to take a look at that plan and go, all right, why don't we switch a couple things around here? And why don't we do this? And he can explain why we should or shouldn't. And also like that just adds into it. That's like a trust in both. Like Jim trusts that I'm not going to sandbag and, try and change my schedule around to make my life easier. But he also knows that there's other stresses in life too. And I provide him with the information of, how my body's feeling, what's going on in my life, like all of that stuff, so that we can balance all of those different things that are going on so that I can be the best prepared to execute the workouts and then race.
Can you tell us about the mental training videos that you guys just did together? And I think it's a part of a collective. But you and Jim put together, I think, 16 videos on mental toughness.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We're actually going to have some more access to those, or some better access eventually, so that you guys can watch them and really look at them better. But overall, like, the mental side of the sport, I think, is one that, tends to fall down to the bottom of the ladder when you're looking at it. Like, physical training takes top priority for everybody, especially just, the average person who's trying to balance work, life, social aspects of like whatever. So the training goes first, and then, it's like kind of nutrition, and there's maybe a couple other runs, and then you kind of have the mental side where everybody just feels like, oh, that'll just fill in. But a lot of times I don't think people understand that you have to train your mind just like your body. And there's there's a different amount of effort that you have to put into that than maybe like physical training. So I think that having like a regimen and just giving experience into somebody who, kind of knows how to push themselves, not that anybody out there doesn't, but it's just kind of my take and Jim's take too on the coach athlete relationship, how I go and I execute my workouts, maybe prep for, an easy run versus a hard workout, or how my mindset is going into a race, so that people can kind of learn and take from that and go out and apply that, to their own racing or even their own life. Because really, like, the mental side of the sport is a good lesson in just how to deal with overcoming different obstacles out there. And I'll be the first one to admit too, I mean, there's people that you just learn from, who you can point to and say, like, they're mentally tough, or they're really good at pushing themselves. And yeah, I think that it's useful to take bits and pieces from all of those people, just from, whether it's sports or work life or parents or whatever it is, and put those together. And then you kind of have this blueprint for what makes you like the most mentally tough, competitor or person.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, to find that recipe, you're talking about some introspection. You're talking about doing some work on that mental game by paying attention to how you're moving through the world. And of course, looking out at people who you think are doing a really good job of it, and take the bits and pieces, but you've gotta make it yours. So the way you were describing it to me sounds like you believe that mental training is kind of its own discipline, as opposed to just a byproduct of pushing through a hard workout, which I think there's some value there.
And, the mental training can take place inside of a physical workout if you have like the wherewithal or the presence to train it there. So instead of just going and pushing yourself and whatever, if you have like the mindset of, okay, trying to squeeze a little bit more out and mentally focusing on still relaxing, or how you're handling the pain that's happening in there, and then you're able to take that and apply it to a race, then all of a sudden you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. But also, like, I've taken the time, like, I've worked, like, Jim is a good resource for me for mental strength, but I've also worked with a sports psychologist pretty regularly. And even just doing that, every so often, and having that base that gives me, that outside mental training, and gives me strategies to help deal with overcoming something in a race, or pushing myself in the middle of one, or maybe some speed bumps, or if there's something holding me back, like, I'm able to process and work through that better in having that time. And, then adding in as well, like, if you take quiet time or meditation or doing yoga or whatever it is, like, just working on different aspects of your mental health or your mental toughness is beneficial. And having that time set aside is really good, because it helps you prep for, the times when you need it. You have to practice it if you're going to use it, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. How has the practice of yoga informed your mental training?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to like the calming breath that I talked about earlier. And I think that it's really, really helpful. You don't realize in today's day and age, when you're looking at your phone or watching, I always seem to have stuff on in the background, whether it's Netflix or my phone or music or talking with Courtney or playing with Tucker or whatever it is. There's always something going on. Your mind is always working on one thing or another, and being able to step back and have a way to calm it down and to just reset kind of like just resetting yourself is really helpful. And having that ability to then, if something is overwhelming, be able to reset and take a step back is helpful in all areas. But that's kind of what I found in having that control over yourself. And I'm by no means an expert at it, but I feel like that has kind of helped hone it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're a student of it, right? Like there's no destination.
Yeah.
It's just going to keep going.
Do you find you've been able to use that? So, we had, Matt Russell on the podcast, and he was doing an intense training session, and he got off the bike and to bring his heart rate down and just to collect his thoughts and calmness, he just sat in meditation for, 5 minutes, I think, or 10 minutes or so. And his heart rate came down and he just had a clearer perspective. Have you maybe just gotten on the mat and done some yoga? Has that translated from workout to maybe reframing things that may have been frustrating or intense at times?
Yeah, well, I think it's a way, like I do a lot of times before races, I kind of do like a 15-minute like yoga routine beforehand. And Courtney will walk me through it, or she'll give me instructions on it before I go or something. So I think a lot of times like just that combines the mindfulness, the flexibility, or some activation, like just combines all of that into like a quick little routine, and kind of just, it helps with the nerves too. If you're nervous at all, or if you're excited, whatever it is, it just helps you stay calm, especially that night before the race when maybe you wouldn't be able to sleep as well or something, just kind of, resets everything. So that's kind of, I think, maybe one of the places where I've used it quite a bit.
So as you prepare for fatherhood, which I'm sure you're going to be using some of those mental training skills as a father, but you have Tucker now as a puppy who, when you first get a puppy, it's like an infant, right? I mean, It's just like you have to protect it. How is Tucker preparing you to be a dad?
That's a good question. I mean, I think he's just helping me get my fathering skills. They're honed. So we had a couple nights where he was up early, but I gotta say, like, he's I hope our baby is as well behaved as Tucker. I think she will be, but he sleeps through the night. He was good. He had a couple nights where he's up. There's only been a couple instances where he's given us a scare, but I think it's just kind of letting go a little bit. Like there's some things I learned this even through racing a little bit, but it's just reinforced here. You just got to let go in some situations. Like it may not be perfect. You may not get a full night's sleep, or you may not expect to be making a run to the vet in the middle of the night for something that ends up being nothing, but you just kind of roll with it because you care about the person or the dog, or it's just life. So and there's some things that are worth missing out on some sleep or skipping out on something else for.
Yeah, letting go. That's a really big one. I mean, not just for athletes, but for humans. And I think in relationship to our sport, letting go is so important too, so that we can move on. What kind of advice would you give to athletes about, this ability to just move on, to live from now, not living from the past, not living about where we were supposed to be today, but we're not there because of, quarantine and COVID and all of that. It's like none of that stuff exists. So
exactly.
We got to let that go. So what's your advice on letting go?
Yeah, I kind of have a couple of things. One is, if it's race results, like, again, I might have even mentioned this in the last podcast I did with you guys, but like my dad, again, always said, like, there's always going to be another race. So if you're dwelling on past results, like, you know what, like I used to think the youth elite national championships was going to make or break my triathlon career. And it ends up like, I have to do the math and figure out what years I was even racing youth elite and who I was racing with and all of that stuff. So like, and that can apply to any race that you're training for, you've done. Like there's always going to be another one. But then like in relation to this year, I think that, you focus, it's the solution focused mindset. It's figuring out like, what can I do to still be better? What race, what's my new goal? Or what is, even if my timeline has changed and my goal hasn't, like, okay, I get extra time. So I think, yeah, we can tend to focus on like, oh, I don't get to, go to a certain race this year. It got canceled. Like, that's so disappointing. And I mean, you got to look on the positive side of all of this. Like, I've spent more time at home and been able to be with family than I ever have before without traveling. And yes, I miss traveling, but I've taken time to really enjoy a lot of what I might not ever be able to do again, because I'm going to have a baby, a dog, and all of that. And, life is going to get crazy. So it's really just focusing on what can you enjoy right now? What are the positives of this? Because that other stuff is going to come back. We're all going to race eventually. So, it's definitely disappointing, but yeah, I think that there's a lot of great things that are also going on that we can focus on, even if it's just little things.
It's I find it's the attachment to that, whatever it is that we were focused so hard on. So let's just use the Olympics, for example. Happens every 4 years and it's not happening this year. And the frustration can arise because we're so attached to it happening now. And when we can't participate in it, we're told we can't, right? The feelings start the swirly sensation happens inside, and we feel like we're wronged, and we feel like we have there's no end in sight. We can't get out of it. And I just had this thought, Ben, like because you love what you do, you get up every day and you do it over and over and over again. What if there were no races and you were just, asked to continue doing what you're doing and you were paid to do it because it's your profession, but there wasn't that end piece to it? How would things change for you, or would they at all?
I think you find a different end piece. Like, maybe you don't have a specific race, but you can still set goals in training. You can set short-term training goals, long-term training goals. You could push yourself in other ways. You could race yourself around the block. If you can't, like, if it's just me and nobody else, like, I want to pick some sort of goal and just keep trying to beat that goal over however long that I have to do that for. And for this period in time, like, we know, like, maybe there might not be any more racing for the rest of the year, but we picked something. We chose to focus on a certain aspect of my training to be better this year, to really try and hone in on the run. And we're going to keep continuing to do that. So 2020 for me, like, we're taking control of it in the way that we can. So I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I have that ability to be okay with not racing right now. And, we're focusing on all of the stuff that we can do. And I feel like 2020 has been, a great year besides all of the stuff that's happening. It's been a lot of exciting things have happened for us over here, and I've been training hard and it's going well. It's just different and it's weird, and we're hoping things get back to normal as soon as possible and that everybody's safe and healthy, but we're doing all we can to really make the most of our time while we're, just being paid to train, I guess.
I love it's really what it is. It's really what it is. And I love it because it's not outcome oriented. You're process oriented. You're trying to be the best Ben Kanute you can be no matter what, which gets lost a little bit when we start comparing ourselves to the outside world. Go ahead. That's the most powerful type of goals too, is the process oriented goals, because you can still have success at the end of a failed outcome goal. Like, you can, like, as long as you gave everything that you had, like, that there's still those processes that you could have hit, and that's still a success. So I think that with all of this, like, we just have to shift our mindset. There's no outcome goals for a big majority of this year, but there's a heck of a lot of process goals that you could be hitting along the way.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this are like, yeah, absolutely. Like 100%. I'm there. Like, I know our team, so proud of them. They have just kept the momentum going, and some of them are doing virtual. Some of them are just doing their own epic adventures. Some of them are focusing on, something to get better at. But there's a lot of people who have totally dropped the momentum. There's a lot of people who have been so devastated by a race being canceled that they took a week off from training to, process it emotionally, and they're really suffering. And what's happening is the very thing is that their training is suffering, like their fitness is suffering because they're having such a difficult time. And I feel this really compassionately. They're having a really difficult time getting out the door. What kind of words do you have for somebody who's struggling right now, but in their heart really wants to get back at it?
Yeah, well, I would say first off, like 2020 is a year of like kind of no rules. Like if you want to take a break when you wouldn't usually take a break, like by all means, go on vacation, like whatever, drink some beer, hang out. Like you don't have to train. There's no like whatever race that you have to be prepared for. But I would say you set tiny goals first. If it's just getting out the door, like go for an easy jog or a walk or an enjoyable bike ride somewhere that you're allowed to ride to, or make it a destination ride, or open water swim in a nice lake that you have nearby or something. Pick something that's enjoyable, that's not, very structured overall, which is something that I found myself doing kind of when we were in that in-between waiting period, is a lot of unstructured work where I could go out and just enjoy being outside. And, if I rode for an hour or I rode for 4, it was what I wanted to do that day. Or, the running, or hiking or whatever it is. So I think that do something that really you enjoy the most, pick that first and get your body moving. And then you can pick, long-term goals or something to work for. Yes, the races this year might not be canceled, but you might be able to pick one later on next year that has a good probability of going on, or you train for something different, like a through hike or like a rim to rim, or do something that's a little bit more out of the ordinary. So you just you redefine race for yourself. If that's the thing that really motivates you to get out the door, and that's the reason why you like to train, is maybe just redefining what racing is for the time being.
I love that. I think that's brilliant advice. I know your dad's had a big influence on you as you're moving into this role as a dad. What do you want to bring into being a father for your child? Oh,
that's a good question. I'm thinking that I'll have a better answer the closer I get and once our baby is born. But I really just want to set a good example, teach her good morals, how to hardworking, and just how to enjoy life as well. So that's a really good question, and I think one that I'm probably gonna keep thinking about. But yeah, I don't know, just to be there for her, and just to hopefully that she just is able to explore and be able to just go over and accomplish all that she wants to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good message for everybody out there. All right. So I saw Courtney's feed. I don't know if it was yesterday or I looked at it this morning, but she was talking about the 5 love languages, and that you were satisfying her love language of acts of service.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if she has asked you or told you what your love languages are.
Yeah, so we've talked about this a little bit. It's an interesting topic, actually. And we haven't actually taken the test, but we kind of thought about it. We've talked about it with each other's families and stuff. But mine is affirmation. So that's a good one. I think everybody has a little bit of all of them in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the acts of service and affirmation are to the two, I guess, competing love languages in the house here.
I think it's a really good thing for couples to understand this, because we're always looking at it from what is our language, right? So your affirmations. So you might be giving Courtney all these affirmations, but she's like, dude, I want some service.
Yeah,
I need acts of service.
Yeah. Words only mean so much. Show me.
Yeah. Do something for me.
Yeah.
Have you been doing a lot of work around the house, or was that working in the pain cave?
Yeah. So, because of everything going on, the pandemic, we did a lot of the moving by ourselves. So we recruited a bit of family, but it's been a lot of moving boxes, moving stuff in, We've been organizing. I laid the rubber gym floor down, which took a bit of effort, and just finished or in the process, I guess, of repainting some stuff. So it's just kind of gathering up and doing some odds and ends around the house and starting to make it feel like a home.
Nice. So what's your like ideal vision for this, for races to start rolling out again? When would you love to see this happening?
Tomorrow. I mean, yeah, I'm ready to go whenever. So this year is just going to be about, racing when I can. I'm ready. Yeah. Like I said, tomorrow if I need to, but if we got to wait till November, December, like we're planning on that. And even if we can't race this year, like we'll be able to adjust and start up next year too. So I've seen some little small things here and there happening, whether it's in Europe or some other places, of some people getting out there and competing. So it's going to be so regional this year. I just think that I'm going to be prepared kind of to just keep my eye on the race calendar and make the trip when necessary.
And the 70.3s are going to be pretty much in your backyard next year, right? So are you already qualified for that, or?
No, I'm not. And actually, like, since that's 2021 now, I know that they just released some of how they're rolling over, what they're doing, but I think I still need a race to qualify at for 2021 for St. George. Does
that get you fired up though? Traditionally, I haven't done the course, but I heard it's a pretty tough course.
That was my second 70.3. I love that course. It's a great course. I mean, Courtney and I drove to it when I raced that in 2017. Loved everything about it. And I love that there's a world championship in the US again. I love racing on home soil.
Exciting. So exciting.
Nice. So tell us how people can best follow you guys, and make sure to give a shout out to your YouTube channel too.
Yeah. So I'm on mainly Instagram at Ben Kanute, or my wife is at Court GTV, and we have a YouTube channel that is Team Kanute. You can follow us there. And those are probably the best two places, other than maybe my website for benkanute.com.
Awesome. And I know that you want to be, a good ambassador for your sport. And I think you, like, everything you're talking about, just being in that solution energy, like timelines might push out, but goals don't change, and keeping that momentum going. So one thing that you would like people to be able to just take away from what you are an ambassador of for triathlon.
Ooh, wow. That's putting me on the spot. I think that just being able to stay in the now moment, whether that's racing or in life or whatever it is, just being present, and like I was talking about, the solution focus, like what can I do now to be my best self?
That's awesome.
Awesome.
I think that's amazing advice. Thank you so much for this conversation, and we'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes. And Ben, it was so awesome to have you on again, man. We can't wait till you get back on that race course, and we'll be cheering you on as always.
Yeah, thanks. I had a great time.